Утомленное солнце нежно с морем шепталось. В этот час ты призналась, что нет любви. Мне немного взгрустнулось, без тоски и печали. В этот час прозвучали слова твои.
Yeah, well, that gets into why some
Yeah, and like what are our priorities?
right.
And
Conservatives. I would say that there are some conservatives who don't believe just getting into a kind of discussion of moralization and motivation. They don't think that what the U.S. represents right now is particularly worth fighting for and spreading. And you start getting into, it's easy to see why when I walk the streets of San Francisco. I mean, it's a very fuzzy line, I know, trying to draw, point A to point A, point A to point B, point A being, how San Francisco looks, and point B being what we plan to somehow spread to the rest of the world. I know it's very murky, but when I see what's happening in San Francisco, I don't get particularly excited about exporting the American way of life. And again, I have to remember that the American way of life includes much more than what I'm seeing here. But I think that gets into why some conservatives are so disillusioned that they're not on board with this.
You know what? I can explain to you why, for instance, Russian liberals don't think that it's a big deal, because they in Russia since 19th century there was this meme of the dying West. It's decay and prostitution, all sorts of moral degradation, and it's according to Russians and Slavophiles, Russians more on nationalists. The same thing was happening during communism. We were taught this idea was married to Marxism, that West is in some kind of decay, but that was explained that that's because of capitalism. And it's the final days of capitalism, and it's all going to come down and basically crash the West, and the West is going to disintegrate. And opposed to it was this model Soviet family that never existed or whatever. And Russian liberals, when they hear about it, they just laugh it off. They don't believe that it's for real. But it's having lived in the United States and most of the time in the Bay Area since the 90s, it was never like that. It was never anything like that. It's just really amazing how far San Francisco went.
Yeah, it does put one in an odd position. David Frum years ago wrote that article, Unpatriotic Conservatives, which gets at the idea that you could be a conservative, but so down on your country for various reasons, including conservatism being defeated everywhere, that you end up in a position of not being particularly enthusiastic about, exporting your way of life and your politics.
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't really. I prefer being called a reactionary. Rather than a conservative, because at this point, what am I conserving? And especially here in San Francisco, well, it's it sucks. And, in the 90s, it was kind of okay. Well, there were homeless people and there was some drug use, but nobody I knew was doing heroin. It was just sort of it existed. It was kind of tolerated, but now it's just incredible. The whole city is paralyzed.
Yeah, it's sometimes I wonder, and I think the numbers do show that, of course, the homelessness and the drug use has all gotten much worse, but I think it almost feels like it's much worse because it's not really being offset by all kinds of people who don't have those problems.
Yeah.
Also being present out in the public square. With COVID combined with the lingering homelessness, there's a kind of malaise and withdrawal dynamic happening among people who are not addicts, and they're sort of, leaving the public square to the homeless and the addicts by default, and that makes it all look so much worse.
Yeah,
But like I
but
said,
you know what? It was already like that before COVID. I remember in maybe 2016, 2017, I took my daughter to see the Nutcracker in at the War Memorial, and just to get there, we had to pass all this ugliness, all the attic. It's just a few blocks, but it made such impression on her that she did not want to go back to see ballet anymore.
yeah,
And,
unfortunately,
yeah, and like for a little child, okay, where we live, we don't have that much homelessness and whatever. But for a little child to see it for the first time, and it was quite a shock.
yeah, I grew up. Well, I was born in San Francisco, but I grew up in nearby Sacramento and came to the Bay Area a lot. And my first exposure to depressing urban homelessness was not actually here. It was New York City in 1990. I was on a trip out there. So it wasn't anything I saw nearby. But now San Francisco could give New York City a run for its money on just the seediness easily.
Yep.
So yeah, you're saying this was well underway before COVID. Just this.
Yeah, but definitely COVID just once the lockdown started, all normal people disappeared, and all that was left was addiction.
Yeah,
and, fentanyl zombies, etc. Yeah.
BART was Bay Area Rapid Transit was considering slashing its weekend service because of low ridership, and that's kind of getting at what I mean about common areas being evacuated by everyone except the homeless and the addicts, which just sort of amplifies their effect. Kind of a general demoralization just walking around. So yeah, LA is LA is in a pretty bad state too, but I was down there last year. I stayed there for about a month, and just because of the size of the city, there are a lot of areas that are not actually too terrible. There's an aspect of the homeless and addiction issue in the Bay Area that it's very acute because we're sort of like piled on top of each other in a way that they're not in LA, which is more spread out.
LA has its own issues. We go to the Valley, San Fernando Valley, twice a year. My husband has family there, and the last few years we were staying in hotels. And the first time when we booked a hotel, we weren't very careful about what we were doing. Somebody recommended a hotel and we booked it. But turns out, that was during the lockdowns. Turns out they allowed a project room key in it. So basically it was a $200 a night homeless shelter. And again, my children were terrified because there were clearly insane people walking around in the lobby, insane people outside. There was police everywhere.
And this was a nicer hotel? This was on the nicer side of the hotel?
Yeah, it was in the Valley. Yeah. So so you have to be very careful about what you book. Since then, we've done more research, and every time we book something, we make sure that it hasn't turned into homeless shelter since last time we stayed there.
Well, that sounds like a move for Airbnb, who I think will be happy to take the people who are disillusioned with what hotels are doing. But,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for continuing the discussion of California, I see that we sort of seamlessly moved from the other topic into this one. Are you familiar much with the Central Valley? It's almost like a different state.
Not much, not from personal experience, other than driving to the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, it's unusual. It's a bit of an anomaly because California is associated with like beautiful coastal scenery, but and then the mountains on the other side of the state. but the entire interior, it looks like West Texas or Oklahoma or something.
Yeah.
It's not very sightly, and Sacramento, I want to defend a little bit just because I grew up there. But so you wrote an article recently on the so-called body positivity movement. Now, do you think? Well, I'll let you just kind of sum that up if you want.
Yeah, well, quote unquote body positivity, like what does it even mean? Like, do some people not have bodies and others have bodies? Like, do you have to be fat to have a body? Like, what is it? And that's something that one of the cultural changes that was kind of forced on the population during lockdowns. To get everybody to believe that obesity is actually healthy, and there is no health risks, et cetera. So we're going to have this plus size models doing something vaguely sporty, just doing something, and we're going to put this large size mannequins in every store, and that's how we'll convince people that it's actually beautiful. Which is, I had my doubts right away that it's going to take. I actually wrote a few articles about it, and I don't believe like healthy and beautiful are different things. There's, for instance, in the 19th century, there was the TB chic. Like the women who look like they have TB were considered beautiful, and then there's the heroin chic or whatever. And
the 90s were, if anything, the 90s were the opposite problem of over entirely too thin and very clearly unhealthy.
Yeah, and that was like the girls look like they're about to pass out. But that was something that somehow was considered, at least by a sizable number of people, was considered beautiful. I had my doubts about this whole body positivity taken, and I mean, some men like larger women. I have no issue with that, but as a larger cultural trend, I just never thought it would take. And one of the reasons why I think this way is because our culture values thin bodies, because thin bodies, what they communicate, it's really easy to be fat now day and age. Like all you need to do is watch TV all day and eat junk food. Anybody can do that. But what thin body communicates is that this woman has self-restraint. She can work out. She can deny herself some measure. She can deny herself desserts or whatever. She's not going to be completely ravenous. And what that communicates to people, the self-restraint is a kind of quality that is preferred in capitalist society, because this is the kind of woman who can get a job, who can raise children, who can be basically a good middle-class wife. And this is what's valued about that body type.
Yeah, it's one thing to kind of grow into a matronly body.
Just I agree, but it's
already
also
25. Something might be wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no, I don't want to so much pass a judgment on anyone. Everyone gains weight over time, pretty much, some amount. But it's just for a young, attractive woman, it's very much, a preferred quality to be thin.
It is strange how the kind of healthy at any size or beautiful at any size kind of sentiment weirdly glosses over what was once a widely seen source of ill in society, and that is, unhealthy food and food manufacturers. We used to think, well, what can we do to limit the availability of those kinds of foods. Vending machines in schools, let's take those out, or put healthy food in there. Or I remember Michael Bloomberg in New York City wanting to limit, drink sizes and things like that. And it was conservatives back then who criticized that stuff. Or let's say Michelle Obama's kind of healthy eating initiatives for schools and that kind of stuff. It used to be conservatives who would criticize that on the basis of, nanny state. It's none of anyone's business what you eat. And now I see conservatives starting to get into bodybuilding or in paleo diets and wanting to eat well, and it's progressives now who are saying, eat what you want, look how you want, it's unimportant. They've almost switched places. It's the progressives who have kind of a lackadaisical attitude toward what you put in your body and how you look.
Yeah, but actually, that last article on body positivity that I wrote, that was about how I went to Target, and I discovered that the fashion industry was all of their, like, Target was one of the worst offenders. They had fat mannequins everywhere, both men and women, and ugly clothes. The fashion that was happening during lockdowns, that was just. I'm glad that it's kind of going away. It's just sort of cloth everywhere, like really baggy dresses. Or if it's not very baggy, it's tights.
Yeah, well,
so either too revealing or it conceals too much, and really doesn't do anything for most women.
Target, you say has more of these hefty mannequins than other.
Yeah, I think more so than all other stores. They're incredibly woke in general, but they were very much in this trend. So I went there and I tried on some clothes, and the old fashion industry trick is size inflation. So basically what they do, like if you're size 2, or if you're size 4, they would put the label that says the size 2, and then the customer believes that she lost weight. They don't do it to men's clothes. It's just for women, basically. So they tag a garment with a lower size than it actually is or was like a few years ago. So they're actually at Target, they now have size extra small, something that did not exist 3 years ago, and formerly known as extra small. So basically, they retagged all of their sizes. So what it tells me is that our customers still want to be told that they're skinny.
Yeah, it's interesting. Target is doing that because I imagine Target is sort of a middlebrow outlet, a bit more upscale, not terribly upscale at all, but more upscale than like a Walmart or a TJ Maxx, I think. And but it's the Target, which likely has shoppers that are less bulky than TJ Maxx or Walmart. That is the one including the body accepting mannequins. Yeah, so you're saying that a 2 is not a 2 anymore. A 2 is really a 4, and you're kind of size inflation going on. Yeah.
But another thing that they're doing, actually, and I didn't write about it, is that the quality of garments is really bad now. I think it's the fabrics mainly, and zippers. Like zippers look like they're going to give in after like a few wears. And I think in part it's because they're trying to, well, in general, I'm sure there's a lot of economic pressure, so they're using the cheapest fabrics that they can lay their hands on, but also because they're including larger sizes. They're making the same clothes with the larger sizes. It all needs to be priced the same way, but there's so much more fabric that goes into size 3X as opposed to extra small, for instance, that it has to be expressed in the price of the product. So either they're going to raise prices, or they're going to use cheaper materials, or both, actually.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
What they're doing, yeah.
Yeah, we hear the term shrinkflation, but this is some kind of weird spin on that.
Well, it's size inflation.
Right.
And shrinkflation in one. Yeah.
Yeah, Americans are not shrinking.
No.
It's sizeflation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Now, there are people who will say that, you know, a lot of one's weight is driven by genes and that these are largely outside of our control. And I'm actually pretty sympathetic to that.
Mhm.
I feel, though, that given how much bigger Americans have gotten so fast, I don't really think genes are a sufficient explanation. Surely something is happening in the environment, you know.
Yeah, there's probably something environmental, or also because maybe there are advances in medical field that are keeping some people alive who wouldn't be alive otherwise. Like, I don't know, there are some blood pressure issues or heart diseases or diabetes. People who are overweight and living longer. So that might be a part of it. But in general, yeah, I agree. It must be something in the environment that, including lack of exercise and overeating.
Yeah,
That
when East Asians come to the U.S., not that they even have to come to the U.S. to have access to plentiful food. They're wealthy countries.
Mhm.
The way that their bodies interact with the environment is very different than, say, people from Mexico or Central America. When they get here, the amount of calories available tend to hit them like a ton of bricks, and within a generation they'll be much bigger. So, things
Mhm.
are there are various bodies, ethnicities, various proclivities that are interacting with the North American food environment that leads some people to be bigger than others. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, clearly, just the proliferation of drive-throughs and then now you don't even have to do the work of driving through. Someone will bring it to you.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, yeah, you could have Chinese food delivered, pizza delivered, but now it's just so much more. Damn near anything you want. You could have someone just bring you stuff from CVS or Safeway. You couldn't have done that back then. They would have said just go out and shop on your own. So yeah, the ease of access to the calories is a big factor.
Yep.
Okay, is there any last topic you wanted to discuss? Any of your writings you want to highlight?
Oh, I don't know. I always find this question very difficult. I have an article that's pinned to my profile right now, and that's about um, uh, Biden's Brezhnev vibes. It's about how we lived in the Soviet Union, knowing that there is something terribly wrong with the General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev, and the two who came after him were obviously just as diseased, and they died in quick succession. And it's kind of a feeling of deja vu because there's obviously something wrong with with Joe Biden. He's not a well man, and somehow it's something that I never thought would happen in the United States because I thought, well, we have transparency in the United States. There's transparency. Like a person like Biden would never be nominated because no party would allow a nomination of somebody like him. He would be vetted by the press. People will be. Oh, that's my husband coming in. He will be vetted by the press. It's just not going to happen in a democratic society, and here we are.
Yeah, it's odd that we have these aging elders
Mhm.
and presidents as if we are some kind of dictatorship or autocracy where someone stays in power for 50 years.
Yeah, or not
Without-
even necessarily age, like Fetterman. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, that's unusual.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think um, that someone in that kind of condition could have advanced as far as they have in politics.
Mhm.
Um, not terribly long ago. I mean, I know we keep bringing up the 90s. The 90s is always kind of this go-to not only a golden age, but a kind of age of reference for just all kinds of things. But yeah, I think in a way part of how we got here is um, the kind of transparency revolution that has helped populists. The proliferation of news and kind of a direct relationship between a politician via social media to their constituency. I think they found John Fetterman fairly relatable, actually, because a lot of people he'd be representing, um, they see someone in their own family who reminds them of John Fetterman, and it ends up, his illness ends up working to his benefit in a way. It humanizes him. So do you have a Substack or anything, or have you delved
Oh,
into?
I have a Substack, but I haven't updated it in a long time. So one place where my articles are usually pulled is Muckrack. I have a page in Muckrack, and it's not even something that I do. They do it for me. So it's I discovered a year ago that it's somehow automatically is done for all writers. So that's one of the pages. But I'm usually on right now on the American Conservative, the American Mind, and some other publications. Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. So I guess we'll wrap it up here. And thanks for taking a part of the middle of your day for this.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. No problem. And have a nice weekend. We're a day
You
out.
too. Thank you.
Say that, I suppose. But yeah, so have a nice weekend, Katya.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.